Clara developed feelings for her brother's friend. He was 6 years older than her, so she had been secretly in love with him, treading carefully, until one time, she couldn't resist stealing a kiss from him under the dim light while he was drunk. Just as she was about to run away, she bumped into his suddenly opened eyes. He lazily lifted his eyelids. "Want me to teach you how to kiss? Too bad. I'm not interested in little girls," her face flushed with embarrassment. Yet she mustered the courage to say, "So you think I'm too young? It's okay, I'll grow up." He paused for a moment, then smiled and said, "All right then, when you turn 22, if you still like me, I'll consider it." At that moment, her heart pounded like a drum, and from then on, she stuck by his side every day until she turned 22, eager to claim his promise. She went to find him, only to hear the cry of a baby outside the private room. She froze for a few seconds, focusing her gaze, and saw Gabriel holding a child who was crying uncontrollably, trying to soothe it. The circle of brothers around them were all covering their ears, looking utterly tormented. "Gabriel, that's too harsh, to reject that girl. You actually found a child to trick her into thinking you're a father." Clara's mind buzzed, her thoughts completely blank. What else? Gabriel's voice carried that familiar laziness she knew so well. "She's 22 today, here to claim the promise from back then." "Do you really dislike Clara that much?" "Actually, the girl is quite nice, pretty, well-behaved, and utterly devoted to you. It's not a matter of liking or disliking." Gabriel's tone suddenly turned serious. "You all know who's always been in my heart." The private room fell silent for a moment before erupting into knowing laughter. "Delia, no wonder, if you ask me, you're overthinking it. With a face like yours, who wouldn't be utterly charmed?" Delia wouldn't refuse. "It's just that you value her too much. All these years, I never knew how to bring it up, afraid that speaking out would ruin our friendship. Luckily, Clara's situation became an opportunity." Gabriel's voice carried a hint of laughter. "I told Delia that a little girl has been pestering me, and I didn't know how to shake her off. I asked Delia to pretend to be my girlfriend for a while, then I'd appear before that girl with Delia and the adopted child, and even hold a wedding. That way, not only would Clara give up, but it'd also help deepen my bond with Delia. After the fake wedding, I'd confess to Delia right then and there." Hearing Gabriel's plan to kill two birds with one stone, everyone marveled and couldn't help but applaud in admiration. Amidst the burst of laughter, no one noticed Clara standing outside the private room. The cake box slipped from her hands, landing with a dull thud. She no longer had the courage to push the door open, tears streaming down her face. She turned and ran in a daze. The rain outside the club was heavy. Clara ran swiftly, letting the downpour soak her carefully prepared dress. So it turns out, Gabriel never liked her. It was all just her wishful thinking. From the age of 14, she had fallen for him at first sight. That day after school, her brother didn't come to pick her up, leaving her cornered by some troublemakers in an alley. It was him who happened to pass by, taught those punks a lesson, and saved her. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Gabriel tossed his jacket to her, handed her 2 pieces of chocolate, and teased her with a playful smile. "Little crybaby, you're crying so hard you've got snot bubbles. Your own brother is still playing basketball. Come on, let me take you home." That day, Clara tasted the sweetest chocolate of her life, and for the first time, fell in love with someone. Thanks to her brother Hogan, she could see the person she liked almost every day. A girl's affection grew wildly like summer vines. She learned to make lunchboxes, preparing over a dozen for her brother to take to school, just so Gabriel could eat her cooking. She tried every way to learn about his preferences, carefully prepared various gifts, and seized every holiday opportunity to give them to him. She gave up the chance to study abroad for him, stayed in a city, just to wait until she turned 22. She waited for 8 years, thinking she could finally fulfill her wish to be with him. But not until today did Clara realize that her affection, to Gabriel, was nothing but a burden and a nuisance. She didn't know how long she had been running before she finally calmed down, trembling as she pulled out her phone and dialed her brother Hogan's number. "Bro," her voice choked with sobs, "I've thought it over and I'm willing to go abroad for further studies. That good friend you mentioned last time, I'm also willing to meet him." All these years, everyone in their circle knew that Clara was pursuing Gabriel. Every time her brother saw her throwing herself at him like this, he always wore an expression of wanting to say something but hesitating. Then he subtly tried to set her up with a boyfriend, hoping she would completely let go of her feelings for Gabriel. And this good friend abroad was already the 18th boyfriend he had introduced to her. Her brother said this friend was tall and handsome, no less impressive than Gabriel, and since she studied design, going abroad for further studies would be perfect. Looking back now, he probably knew early on that Gabriel had his heart set elsewhere, which was why he used this method to help her cut her losses in time. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. You know everything. Clara closed her eyes, rain mixing with tears as they streamed down her cheeks. Did he really like Delia that much? Yeah, then I wish him all the best. She wiped her face. And I'll do as he wishes. I won't like him anymore either. Back home, Clara mechanically opened the suitcase and began packing her clothes. The phone vibrated, its screen lighting up. Gabriel, why didn't you come? She stared at the message for a long time until a second notification popped up immediately after. Gabriel, little girl, I already have a girlfriend. We've even had a child and are about to get married. Please stop liking me. Then, he sent 2 photos. One was a photo of a baby's tiny foot, and the other was an exquisitely designed wedding invitation. Clara stared at the screen for a long time, only replying with 2 words, okay. After sending the message, she tossed her phone onto the bed and pulled out a metal box from the depths of the drawer. It was filled with movie ticket stubs, amusement park passes, his basketball jersey she'd secretly kept, the doll he'd given her. All were memories related to Gabriel over these past 8 years. She picked up the metal box and walked out, dumping its contents into the trash without hesitation. Meanwhile, inside the private room of an upscale club, Gabriel stared at his phone screen with a furrowed brow. He had expected her to cry or make a scene, but he never anticipated such a calm reaction from her. What did she reply? A friend leaned over, then widened his eyes in disbelief. Just an okay, something's not right. Another brother stroked his chin. Given how infatuated that girl is with you, she shouldn't be this calm. The group was puzzled at first, but soon someone had an epiphany. Holy shit, could it be that she just came by earlier and overheard our conversation at the door? She already knows the child is fake and the wedding is fake too. That's why she's pretending to be so indifferent. After hearing their analysis, Gabriel frowned more and more deeply, given the girl's previous temperament. After waiting for so many years and learning that he already had someone he loved and even a child, she would surely have made a big scene. Her current calmness must mean she's aware of the inside story and is playing the old game of retreating to advance. Feigning indifference to lure him in, the brothers immediately agreed with this view and quickly offered their advice. In that case, Gabriel, you should keep up the act with Delia. This is a rare opportunity to deepen your relationship. After all, the girl surely hasn't given up yet. But once the 2 of you are truly together, she'll have no choice but to let go. That's right. Clara's attitude doesn't matter. What's important is that you strike while the iron is hot to win over your beloved. Once the rice is cooked, all problems will resolve themselves. As the group was chatting animatedly, Hogan pushed the door open and entered, his gaze immediately landing on Gabriel. Gabriel, come out. I need to talk to you about Clara. Is she going to tattle to her brother? Gabriel lazily raised his eyes and was about to speak when his phone rang. Gabriel, are you free now? Didn't you say you were going to put on a show for your brother's sister? I'd like you to come with me to pick out some baby supplies for the child. It'll make the act more convincing. Hearing Delia's gentle voice, Gabriel agreed without a second thought. He immediately stood up and left, leaving only Hogan with a single sentence. Let's talk next time. I have something to do today. Just a few minutes. Watching him rush off in such a hurry, Hogan wanted to call out to him, but was stopped by his brothers. Forget it, Hogan. Gabriel is rushing to meet someone he likes. Don't try to stop him. Yeah, you know he likes Delia. After waiting all these years, he finally has a chance to confess. You should stop trying to set your sister up with him from now on. Upon hearing their dissuasion, Hogan frowned. I didn't mean it that way. He wanted to tell Gabriel that his sister had come to her senses and decided to study abroad, and would no longer bother him in the future. After resting for a night, Clara went out to apply for a visa. The staff said the approval could be granted in as little as 2 weeks. After resting at home for 2 or 3 days, it was my brother's birthday. Hogan loves lively gatherings and hosts a banquet every year. She changed into a formal dress and went to the party. The hall was filled with guests and bustling with excitement, and all his brothers were there as well. Clara didn't want to run into them and deliberately avoided the encounter. Before long, Gabriel appeared in public view with Delia in one arm and their child in the other. Seeing his radiant and triumphant appearance, everyone couldn't help but feel envious, murmuring among themselves, who would have thought that Gabriel would be the first to settle down? I heard he's loved Delia for over a decade. Now with both a wife and child, he's truly living the dream. What a pity for those young girls who liked him. Their hearts must be shattered by now. Ha ha ha. Hearing these comments, Clara remained expressionless. A moment later, Gabriel led Delia to her and casually called out to her, "Clara, I haven't introduced you yet. This is my wife, and this is my child." Instantly, all eyes in the room turned toward them. Clara remained composed, forcing a faint smile. "Hello, sister-in-law." Delia, the excellent actress he had hired, lived up to expectations. She extended a hand with a radiant smile, saying, "Clara, right, I've heard Gabriel mention you several times. You're still young and may not fully understand love. Now that you're Gabriel and I already have a child together, it's time to let go of those feelings. We're planning to hold our wedding next month. You must come and celebrate with us." Clara lowered her gaze. "I understand, sister-in-law. I overstepped before, but from now on, I'll remember my place. I wish you both happiness." Hearing her say this, the surrounding brothers immediately started teasing her. "What kind of things are you talking about? Like when you called Gabriel in the middle of the night to pick you up? Or when you got drunk and declared in public that you'd marry no one but him? Or when you went to Lester's house and asked the servants about his preferences? Clara, your Gabriel is a married man now. If you keep clinging to him like this, you'll only embarrass yourself and the Michelle family. You need to grow up and not ruin the brotherhood between your brother and Gabriel just because of your selfishness." Each teasing remark felt like grains of salt being scattered over Clara's already wounded heart. She instinctively looked at Gabriel, who stood just a few steps away, his expression indifferent. For a fleeting moment, she felt as if he had become a different person, no longer the Gabriel from her memories who had always looked out for her. Yet upon closer reflection, he had always maintained this icy demeanor toward other suitors, never giving them any hope. It seemed that his previous tolerance of her advances had truly been out of respect for her brother, not wanting to cause a rift. Now that he's with the person he loves, he must completely sever ties with her. After all, in his heart, Delia is more important than anything else, isn't she? Thinking of this, Clara was overwhelmed by a deep sense of bitterness. She simply nodded and turned to leave. The birthday banquet had just begun, and the belated Hogan was busy mingling with the guests. Completely unaware of his sister, Gabriel eagerly and openly introduced to everyone that Delia was his wife. He would proactively shield her from all the toasts, feed her delicious snacks, gently straighten her disheveled dress, and massage her sore shoulders. Everyone praised him for being a doting husband, envied Delia's luck in marrying him, and called them a match made in heaven, a perfect couple. Clara watched from afar, her mouth bitter, forcing herself to look away. She sat alone in the corner until Delia approached with a glass in hand, breaking the silence. "Your brother's birthday, and you're sitting here without a word. Are you upset?" Clara didn't expect her to come over and instinctively stepped aside. "I'm not upset, Delia. I've completely let go of Gabriel now." Delia was stunned for a moment, her gaze towards her becoming complex. "But Gabriel told me you've been pestering him for years, determined to be with him. That was before. After I found out he's liked you for years, I gave up. I wish you both happiness." After saying this, Clara stood up to leave, but Delia grabbed her hand. "You said Gabriel has liked me for many years. Where did you hear that? Did he admit it himself?" Clara had no mood to continue the conversation with her. "Everyone says so. Go ask him yourself." "I don't know." Delia refused to let her leave, determined to get a clear answer. As the two struggled with each other, the chandelier above them suddenly loosened and came crashing down. Looking up to see the rapidly descending black shadow, Clara's mind went blank. Before she could react, Gabriel, who happened to be nearby, suddenly turned pale and rushed forward to shield Delia as they moved away. The dozens of pounds heavy lighting fixture crashed entirely onto Clara, sending her collapsing to the ground with a thunderous impact. Blood gushed out as excruciating pain, as if every limb were being broken, tore through her body. She lay in a pool of blood, her body trembling uncontrollably, listening to the terrified screams around her. The scene before her grew increasingly blurry. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness completely was Gabriel holding Delia and whispering comforting words. After what felt like an eternity, Clara woke up groggily to find Hogan with red eyes, keeping vigil by her hospital bed. "I'm sorry, Clara, it's my fault for not protecting you well enough, which led to you getting so badly hurt." Clara shook her head, her voice weak and hoarse. "It's not your fault, brother. It happened so suddenly. And you were too far away to save me in time." Hearing his sister's words, Hogan recalled what had happened before the incident, growing even more remorseful. "I couldn't make it in time, but Gabriel was so close to you and refused to help. If it weren't for Delia distracting you with small talk, you could have avoided this unexpected disaster." Clara shook her head and comforted him gently. "Brother, when his beloved and I were both in danger, it was instinctive for him to save the one he cared about most. he wasn't wrong. It was my wishful thinking before, but after this experience, I've truly let go. Good, as long as you can move on, whatever decision you make, I'll support you. Hogan tightly held her hand and nodded firmly. Clara managed a faint smile as she gradually calmed her emotions. Her condition stabilized, and only after keeping vigil for several days without rest did Hogan feel relieved enough to take a break. The ward grew quiet again as Clara took out her phone and booked a flight departing in 10 days. The airline called to confirm the reservation. She listened carefully, unaware of the footsteps at the door. Yes, it's the earliest flight to the U.S. On the 19th, first class. What first class? Seeing Gabriel suddenly appear at the door, Clara was startled. Nothing, although she denied it. Gabriel intuitively sensed something was wrong and stared at her intently. When did you learn to lie? Where are you planning to go with that plane ticket? Faced with his persistent questioning, Clara remained silent for a few seconds before speaking hoarsely. You're about to get married. No matter where I go, it shouldn't concern you, right? Gabriel had initially been somewhat suspicious, but hearing her say this made him think it was just another one of her tricks, and his expression turned cold again. It doesn't concern me, but Delia was worried about you and asked me to check on you. I'm fine, Gabriel, please go back. Her uncharacteristically distant attitude surprised Gabriel. He was about to speak when a nurse knocked and entered, notifying them about the follow-up examination. Clara had injured her leg and was struggling to get out of bed alone, nearly falling. Gabriel quickly reached out to steady her. She murmured her thanks and attempted to wheel herself away. Seeing her covered in wounds and struggling to move, he couldn't help but feel compassion. Taking the initiative to push the wheelchair for her. Where's the examination room? Let me take you there. No need. I can manage on my own. Clara refused, but Gabriel only became more insistent, pushing her out of the ward. Just as they reached the ground floor, the two of them bumped into Delia head-on. The moment he saw her, Gabriel immediately let go and rushed forward. It happened to be a downhill slope, and before the wheelchair could brake, it sped rapidly downward. Ah! Just as she was about to crash into the flower bed, Clara felt her heart pound violently as she forced herself to roll off the wheelchair. She fell to the ground, scraping her hands and knees. With blood seeping from the wounds, she groaned in pain, clutching the torn wound as cold sweat dripped from her forehead. Delia was also startled and quickly stepped forward to check the situation. The wheelchair was smashed to pieces. She looked at Clara's injuries and tugged on Gabriel's hand. Gabriel. Clara is injured, and the wheelchair is broken. Carry her to get bandaged. Hearing this, Gabriel's expression shifted subtly. He looked at the pain-stricken Clara, then turned his gaze to Delia and shook his head in refusal. No, I'm about to get married. I can't hold another woman. Each word pierced Clara's heart. She clenched her palms so tightly that her fingertips were stained with blood. Delia couldn't persuade him, so she had to let him go fetch a new wheelchair, this time. Gabriel actually agreed. After watching his figure disappear, Delia handed over a handkerchief. Gabriel has always been like this. He only listens to me. Please don't take it to heart. I also bear some responsibility for your injury at the hotel the other day, but my child has had a fever these past 2 days, and I couldn't get away, so I sent him to check on you instead. I didn't expect another mishap. Though it was unintentional, it's still our fault. I'm truly sorry. Clara had no idea what act she was putting on today, gritting her teeth as she stood up despite the pain. Delia, I've already said it. I won't keep clinging to Gabriel. Whether you're acting or genuinely getting married, I won't care anymore. With that, she staggered away on unsteady feet. Delia, however, refused to let it go and hurried after her. So you knew that Gabriel and I were just acting? Mid-sentence, a loud splash startled Clara, making her turn around. Seeing Delia accidentally fall into the pool and struggle for help, she hesitated for a few seconds before finally reaching out her hand. Gabriel, who had turned back, saw this scene and rushed over, jumping into the pool to rescue Delia. Seeing her pale, weak, and coughing, he turned his furious gaze toward Clara. I was only gone for a few minutes, and you deliberately pushed Delia into the water. Clara never expected Gabriel to blame her for everything. As she was about to explain, seeing his uncontrollable rage, Gabriel didn't even give her a chance. He held Delia and stood up, then abruptly pushed her into the pool. I've tolerated all your previous harassment, but Delia is my bottom line. If you dare harm her again, don't blame me for not holding back. His sinister and icy tone, mixed with the freezing pool water, poured into Clara's ears. The blood flowing from her body spread in the pool, creating a crimson swirl. She couldn't swim. Flailing with all her might, yet couldn't reach the shore no matter how hard she tried. The oxygen in her chest was gradually depleting. her face turning purple, her heartbeat slowing down. Waves of dizziness assaulted her, dragging her consciousness into an endless abyss of darkness. When she opened her eyes again, Clara heard intense arguing coming from outside the door. Clara is my biological sister, someone you've watched grow up. How could she possibly do something like pushing someone into the water? You deliberately retaliated and nearly caused her to drown. Shouldn't you apologize? If you want me to apologize, fine, but first, make her apologize to Delia. If she hadn't been consumed by jealousy and harmed Delia first, would I have retaliated for no reason? You care about your sister, and I care about my wife. If anything happens to Delia, even if Clara dies 100 times, it wouldn't be enough to atone for her sins. Hearing Gabriel's furious rebuke, Clara felt a chill run through her entire body, as if she had fallen into an icy abyss. No matter how many times he had rejected her before, she had never felt as hopeless as she did at this moment. She thought that even if they couldn't be lovers, given how many years they'd known each other, there would still be some insignificant affection between them. Turns out, when it came to the one he truly loved, she was nothing at all. The two people outside the door didn't know she had woken up and were still arguing incessantly, without any evidence. You're pushing all this onto Clara, not even giving her a chance to explain, just because she's liked you for years. You think you can hurt her without restraint. She's been pestering me for so many years, and it's only for your sake that I've spared her some dignity. Haven't I done enough to save her from embarrassment all these years? You blame me for hurting her feelings, but have you ever considered how long I've endured? The anger that had been Hogan's heart was completely ignited at this moment. He could no longer hold back. Grabbing Gabriel by the collar and swinging his fist to punch him, Gabriel didn't back down either, and the two of them ended up in a brawl. Hearing this sudden commotion, Clara felt a jolt in her heart and struggled to get up to go out and mediate. Seeing the two men covered in bruises, throwing fierce punches that landed with audible thuds, she quickly rushed forward to stand between them. Tears she had been holding back for so long finally burst forth, and she cried with all her might, her voice hoarse from the effort. Stop fighting, please stop fighting. Brother, won't you come back with me? I'm begging you. Seeing his sister's tears, Hogan finally regained his lost rationality. His nose tingled with emotion. He closed his eyes briefly, took a deep breath, and voluntarily released his grip. Holding Clara's hand, he turned away dejectedly and walked back toward the hospital room. As the door closed, the siblings heard Gabriel's icy voice. Don't think acting pitiful will make me forgive you. This is my final warning. Stay away from Delia from now on. Hogan's barely suppressed rage threatened to reignite, but Clara clung to him desperately, her voice thick with pleading. Let it go, brother, just let it go. I'll be leaving soon anyway, and I won't appear in Gabriel's world anymore. There's no need to strain your relationships with him or your brothers for my sake. The more she tried to dissuade him, the more Hogan's heart ached for her. The siblings sat in silence, the room quiet for a long time before he finally spoke in a low voice to break the stillness. Clara, it's my fault as your brother. Gabriel only has Delia in his heart, to the point of abandoning even his own brother for her. I should have told you the truth the first time I noticed you had feelings for him, then you wouldn't have fallen so deeply. Clara shook her head lightly, her eyes filled with weariness and resignation. I know you had your own difficulties, and I've never blamed you. Besides, things have already come to this point. Regret won't change anything. I'm only 22, still so young. I can start over. Seeing her forced smile, Hogan patted her head. Yes, our Clara will have a brand new life ahead, and will surely meet better people. In the following days, Clara continued to recuperate in the hospital. During this time, she would occasionally overhear some gossip from the nurses during their rounds. I heard the VIP ward upstairs was booked by the CEO of Lester family's conglomerate. No wonder he's so extravagant. The patient in the ward must be his fiancée. Right, no wonder he's been glued to her bedside, fetching water, feeding her porridge, and buying gifts to cheer her up. Rumor has it they got pregnant before marriage and already have a child. They're getting married in a few days, and apparently, the wedding dress and ring alone cost hundreds of millions. To go all out for a globally live-streamed wedding of the century, giving the bride such grandeur, seems like this Mr. Gabriel is truly head over heels in love. Listening to their envious chatter, Clara recalled the plan she'd overheard at the club entrance that day and closed her eyes. Gabriel must be so confident in this grand, lavish wedding because he's absolutely certain Delia will accept his proposal. He had waited for so many years, exhausting all his efforts and wits to stage this play, and finally got his wish fulfilled. And the clingy nuisance he detested the most would also vanish forever after this wedding, never to appear again. truly a happy event that kills two birds with one stone, indeed worthy of grand celebration. Clara in her days. The phone rang a few times. She snapped back to reality, saw the name on the screen, froze for a few seconds, and then pressed the answer button. Clara, I heard you were hospitalized. Have you been feeling better lately? It was Hogan's brother calling, circling around with questions. Clara could tell something was off before he hesitantly revealed his true intentions. I heard that Hogan and Gabriel got into a fight. Their relationship is quite strained now. What was it about this time? No matter how much we brothers tried to mediate, it didn't help. Do you know? After a long silence, she briefly explained the situation. Upon hearing this, that brother also sighed. After so many years of brotherhood, to fall out over such a small misunderstanding would be laughable if word got out. Clara, could you do us a favor? Tonight, we'll organize a gathering, call your brother over, and we can clear up any misunderstandings right then and there. Clara knew that besides family, her brother valued these life-and-death brothers more than anything else in his life. She didn't want to create distance between her brother and his brothers because of her, so she agreed to his request. After completing the hospital discharge procedures, under the pretense of having a gathering with her girlfriends, Clara brought Hogan along. As soon as he entered the private room and saw Gabriel and Delia sitting in the center, his expression darkened, and he turned to leave. Clara exerted all her strength to drag him and persuaded him a few more times before he reluctantly sat down. A group of brothers kept an eye on their expressions, occasionally cracking jokes to lighten the mood. Seizing the opportunity, Delia took the initiative to approach Hogan, her tone full of apology. Hogan, that day at the hospital when I fell into the water was just an accident. Gabriel was just too worried about me, so he acted out of anger. If you two brothers continue this cold war over such a small matter, both Clara and I will feel deeply uneasy. Someone offered a way out. Hogan's expression softened considerably, though his tone remained cold. As long as he apologizes to Clara, I won't pursue this matter further. Gabriel also cast a cold glance, showing no sign of softening his stance. As long as she apologizes to Delia, I'll apologize to her. The two were on the verge of clashing again when several brothers quickly stepped in to mediate. Come on, we've known each other for so many years, why be so nitpicky? Let me decide. How about you both have a drink together and let bygones be bygones? All right. Delia was the first to raise her glass. Seeing this, Gabriel frowned, quickly stood up, took her glass, and downed it in one go. He placed the empty glass in front of Hogan. Hogan only took a sip after this, and the atmosphere in the room finally warmed up. Gabriel, since you listen to your wife so well, does that mean from now on, every time we invite you out for drinks, we'll have to ask for her permission first? Faced with their teasing, Delia's face instantly turned red, and she unconsciously gave Gabriel a light push. Only then did a faint smile appear on his face as he leisurely began to speak. Delia is still on her period and can't drink alcohol. Shouldn't I, as her husband, step up after we get married? No matter where I go or what I do, it's only natural to report to Delia. What's there to make a fuss about? Hearing this from him, everyone in the room covered their mouths and snickered. Sister-in-law really has a way, taming our aloof and unruly Beijing socialite prince into a henpecked husband. So sweet it's sickening. Clara sat quietly listening to their teasing and realized she no longer felt the same pain as before. Facing Hogan's concerned gaze, she chuckled softly, signaling that she was fine. Before long, everyone clamored to play games. Delia didn't know how to play and lost over a dozen rounds in a row. Confronted with the entire table of drinks she was supposed to be penalized with, Gabriel showed not the slightest impatience, smiling as he drank them all. Watching him tirelessly down one cup after another, Clara silently stood up and went to the restroom alone. After washing her hands and stepping out, she was about to return to the private room when she heard a familiar voice in the hallway. Honey, you know what? The first time I saw you, I fell in love at first sight, but you were always so distant with me. I thought you only saw me as a friend, so I didn't dare confess my feelings. I could only stay by your side, year after year. Turns out, loving someone truly makes you insecure. Gabriel, drunk and tipsy, leaned against Delia's shoulder. She supported him, her eyes brimming with bashfulness, her voice coquettish and tender. So you came up with this idea, deliberately using Clara as a decoy to make me your girlfriend. Do you like me that much? Yes, I do, very much. My phone is full of your photos, and my notes are filled with all your likes and dislikes. I've had your number pinned at the top for over a decade. Every time you message me first, I get so happy I can't sleep all night. I've also written you so many love letters. I'll show them to you someday. Okay, After knowing Gabriel for 8 years, Clara was seeing him with the look of first love for the very first time. She quietly listened to his drunken confession, and in a daze, recalled the scenes of her own confession and his from the past. He gazed at her steadily, his eyes clear and devoid of any trace of emotion. Back then, she believed that as long as she persevered, she would eventually warm his heart, but now she understood that even if she waited another 8 years, 18 years, or 28 years, she would never get what she wished for. If a butterfly cannot fly across the ocean, how could she ever move the heart of a man who loves another woman? Clara didn't linger any longer and returned to the private room alone. Hogan also knew she wasn't comfortable in such situations. So after saying goodbye to everyone, he left with her. The siblings went downstairs and were about to hail a taxi home when they suddenly noticed a commotion ahead. Delia and Gabriel were surrounded by a group of drunkards, with the two parties arguing loudly. Not sure what the conversation was about, Gabriel got so angry that he grabbed a bottle from the table and smashed it over a drunkard's head. The group of thugs were instantly enraged and swarmed in for a group attack. In an instant, the entire hall descended into chaos, with curses and screams echoing continuously, while bottles, chairs, and tables flew everywhere. Seeing this chaotic scene, Hogan darkened his expression, left a remark, and then took off his coat to join the brawl. Clara, go upstairs and call for help. Clara panicked and immediately turned back to summon assistance. When she returned with a group of people, they saw a drunken man, beaten bloody, grab several bottles and hurl them at Delia, who was cowering in a corner, crying uncontrollably in terror. Her heart leaped into her throat, and just as her pupils dilated to their widest, she saw Gabriel charge forward without hesitation. He threw himself onto Delia, shielding her from all the attacks with his body. Blood gushed out like a fountain, splattering and staining his white shirt red. Witnessing this scene firsthand, Clara stood frozen in place, her breath halting, seeing him covered in wounds yet standing firm in front of Delia, refusing to retreat even a step. Her heart trembled violently. Only at this moment did she finally believe that Gabriel's love for Delia had indeed reached the point where he was willing to sacrifice his life for her. She was dazed for a long time, and when she woke up again, she found herself in the hospital. The operating room lights had just turned off, and the doctor walked out wiping sweat, his tone full of relief. The surgery was very successful. By the way, is Delia the patient's wife? He kept murmuring this name while unconscious. We suggest this lady stay by the ICU to talk to him more. It'll help him regain consciousness faster. Upon hearing the news, a group of brothers urged Delia to hurry to the ward to accompany the patient. After watching her leave, Clara tugged at Hogan's sleeve. Brother, let's go back. Hogan paused for a few seconds, then nodded and led her away. After returning home, Clara took out her suitcase and began packing her belongings. Watching her busy figure, Hogan felt somewhat uneasy and kept helping by her side. Observing her condition, Clara knew what he was worried about, her face calm and composed. Brother, stop staring at me all the time. I'm fine. I'll be leaving in a couple of days, and we won't see each other for a long time. I'll miss you. So you must come visit me often, okay? Hogan felt a pang of bitterness in his heart and, as usual, gently pinched her cheeks. Of course, I'll visit you whenever I'm free, and I also want to see how you're getting along with my buddy. In the following days, Clara was busy at home preparing for her trip abroad and didn't step out until the day before departure. Hogan got drunk at Gabriel's bachelor party. She left the house after receiving the phone call, ready to pick up her brother. So she quickly arrived at the Lester family's villa and rang the doorbell. Before long, the butler came to open the door and led her to find the person. In the past, to see Gabriel often, whenever there was a chance, Clara would follow her brother to come and play. So she was very familiar with the place. After not coming for a month, stepping into this villa again, she felt somewhat unfamiliar. The villa was decorated with lanterns and colorful banners, covered with double happiness characters, creating a jubilant atmosphere. The towering trees that once stood in the courtyard were gone, replaced by vast rose gardens. The black and white themed decor had also been completely revamped, now replaced with a fresh palette of blue and green. The room was filled with wedding decorations everywhere, along with countless adorable plush toys and ornaments. The butler also recognized Clara and chatted cheerfully with her as they walked. Miss Clara, the young master has been extremely busy lately preparing for the wedding. It's been a while since you last visited. You must hardly recognize the place now, right? Remember how you used to love those lush pine trees? Unfortunately, our new mistress didn't like them, so the young master had them cut down. A pity, isn't it? The furniture and decor in the rooms have all been changed to the mistress's preferred color scheme. Doesn't it look much nicer now? The young master even said that from now on, all household matters will be decided by the mistress. I never expected him to change so much after marriage. It seems he truly adores her, doesn't he? Clara listened quietly, her voice soft and faint. Yes, he likes her very much, everyone can see that. Walking through the corridor leads to the lounge, which is incredibly noisy inside. Clara didn't want to go in, so she called her brother to let him know she had arrived. After a short while, the room door was pushed open. Gabriel supported the completely drunk Hogan as they walked out, and upon seeing her, his expression froze for a moment. Clara remained calm as still water, greeting them obediently. Hogan rubbed his bleary eyes and waved at him, his voice thick with drunkenness. Tomorrow at your wedding, I won't be coming. I have to go and send off. Mid-sentence, he drifted into a daze and lost consciousness. Gabriel frowned. What's your brother so busy with tomorrow that he can't even attend my wedding? Clara knew Hogan was going to take her to the airport, but she didn't want him to know about her departure, so she shook her head and pretended not to know. Maybe he's busy with something, or maybe he's just talking drunk nonsense. With that, she supported her brother and was about to leave, but after just a few steps, she was called back again. What about you? Will you come to the wedding tomorrow? Clara paused in her steps, her gaze slightly frozen, her tone carrying a sense of relief. My brother doesn't want me to go, and you probably don't want to see me either, right? So I won't go. I'll just stay here and wish you a happy marriage and everlasting love. I might not have another chance to send my blessings in the future. After hearing her words, Gabriel's heart skipped a beat. What does she mean by might not have another chance to send my blessings in the future? Unable to understand. He instinctively wanted to stop her and ask, but Delia's call came through at that moment. He hesitated for a few seconds before finally deciding to answer the call. Gabriel, you're not allowed to drink too much today, or I won't forgive you if you're late tomorrow. All right, whatever you say. Hearing his gentle, coaxing tone, Clara smiled silently and took Hogan home. I slept soundly through the night and woke up at 8 o'clock, after finishing breakfast. Her brother drove her to the airport. The plane took off promptly at 11. Seeing that there was still time, she specifically reminded Hogan, brother, you should hurry to the wedding now. They must still be waiting for you. I'll call you when I arrive to let you know I'm safe. Hogan glanced at his watch, sighed, and nodded in agreement. After watching him leave, Clara walked alone through the boarding gate and boarded the plane, just as she was about to turn off her phone before takeoff. Gabriel suddenly called. She froze for a moment, then pressed the end call button, blocked all his contact methods while at it. Before the plane took off, she took one last look at the city she had lived in for over 20 years, then she closed her eyes. Without any lingering attachments, when Hogan arrived at the wedding venue, he was surprised to find the ceremony hadn't started yet. He quickly walked forward and took his seat. The crystal chandelier refracted dazzling light. The banquet hall was filled with guests. Gabriel and Delia poured champagne into the tower amidst everyone's applause, yet Gabriel's gaze involuntarily drifted toward the entrance. Clara didn't come. As the MC urged for the third time that the ceremony was about to begin, Delia hooked his arm and whispered, "Is something wrong?" Gabriel shook his head. He turned slightly to pull out his phone and dialed Clara's number. But only a mechanical voicemail tone answered, "Sorry. The number you dialed is busy, please try again later." He frowned, his fingers unconsciously rubbing against the gilded name on the invitation. Clara, her words from that night still seemed to echo in his ears. There won't be another chance to send blessings in the future. Not only were the words so final, but you're not even willing to offer a perfunctory blessing. His gaze swept across the room, and he spotted Hogan's figure. Gabriel unconsciously took a step forward, wanting to ask why Clara hadn't come. As the MC's urging voice sounded again, Gabriel had just stood up when he felt his arm being pulled downward. Turning back, he saw Delia's pale face. "Gabriel, I feel a bit dizzy." No sooner had she spoken than she collapsed softly to the ground. Her skirt spreading out like a blooming flower, Gabriel hurriedly gathered her into his arms. The bride's fainting caused immediate chaos at the scene. The accompanying doctor hurried through the crowd to examine Delia's condition, and within moments, was already drenched in sweat. She put on a stethoscope to conduct a further examination, only to feel Delia's unusually thick layer around the abdomen. Unzipping the side zipper, the doctor frowned even deeper. How could she wear such a tight corset? She shouldn't torture her body like this just for beauty. Gabriel asked anxiously, "Doctor, what's wrong with Delia?" The scene was chaotic, and a more thorough examination would still require going to the hospital. Delia was wheeled into the operating room, and shortly after, a doctor approached Gabriel. The doctor looked Gabriel up and down, as if confirming his identity. "Are you the husband of the woman in labor?" Gabriel jerked his head up. "What pregnant woman? Wasn't the child brought back by him? Is it fake?" The doctor didn't notice Gabriel's inner turmoil, and his next words only further Gabriel's mind into complete chaos. "This is too reckless. The pregnant woman is already 32 weeks along. How could she still be wearing a corset? Do you know that this not only affects the fetus's development and movement but could also lead to premature birth? Do you realize that?" Gabriel's mind became even more chaotic from the doctor's words. The child he brought home is clearly still there. Delia just told him the other day she was on her period, so she couldn't drink. So, whose child is in her belly? Gabriel ignored the doctor's incessant chatter, staring fixedly at the red surgical light with a profound gaze. Delia woke up to waves of darkness still clouding her vision, but her hand instinctively reached for her abdomen. The moment she failed to feel the corset, her eyes flew open in shock. "You're awake." The voice beside her made Delia feel as if she'd been plunged into an icy abyss. Gabriel stood by the window, backlit, his expression obscured by the light. Delia turned her head to look at him, her hand gripping the bedsheet tightly beside her. Her palm was already drenched in cold sweat. "Gabriel, what's wrong with me? Don't you know yourself?" His words carried what seemed like genuine confusion. "You're pregnant, yet you've been wearing a corset, compressing your body, which is why you fainted." "Gabriel, I don't understand what you're saying. I've already informed them to cancel the wedding." Gabriel walked slowly to the bedside and sat down, then picked up an orange and began peeling it. The calmer he appeared, Delia the more flustered she became. Her phone was missing. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious, let alone Gabriel had discovered what or how much. Now, upon hearing the news that the wedding had been cancelled, she forced a faint smile. "Why was it cancelled? It's not that big of a deal for me. Maybe we should go back now." "Whose child is it?" "What?" Delia's smile froze on her face. Gabriel, whether accidentally or intentionally, squeezed the orange peel, causing its juice to spray into Delia's eyes. She jerked her head away, and tears immediately began to fall. The next second, her chin was roughly yanked back. "Tell me, whose child is this?" Their eyes met, both pairs equally red-rimmed. On one side was fear, on the other fury. "The child. Wasn't it you who brought the child back? You brought it back to deceive Clara, didn't you?" "Gabriel, how would I know whose child it is? I don't understand what you're saying." Seeing Delia still trying to argue, Gabriel's anger surged uncontrollably. His grip on her chin tightened until his knuckles turned white. "Are you pretending to be stupid? Or do you really think I'm that easy to fool, Delia? Who is the father of the child in your belly?" The pain spread through her body in a fine, relentless wave. Delia clenched her jaw, trying to break free, but his hold only tightened. The sharp agony drained the color from her face, and beads of sweat slowly formed at her temples. In the deathly silence, the heart monitor by the bedside suddenly emitted a sharp alarm sound. Delia suddenly broke into a smile. "Want to know? Why not look it up yourself?" She tilted her head, fingers gently caressing Gabriel's face, her tone still lingering. "You love me so much. Why aren't you even willing to take responsibility?" "Take responsibility." Gabriel, upon hearing those two words, his fingers suddenly tightened, the bed railing groaning under the strain with a sharp creak. "Say that again." He could hardly believe his ears. Delia, her smile grew even brighter, the former tenderness vanishing, replaced by an intense malice. Her fingers, painted with crimson nails, lightly traced her abdomen as she let out a soft sigh. "What? Don't believe me? Or, can't handle the truth?" Delia's voice was as sweet as ever, but now to Gabriel, it felt like a blade coated in honey. "Gabriel has been following me like a lovesick puppy for 10 years, and now he won't even step up to be a ready-made dad." Outside the window, the storm finally unleashed its fury, raindrops pounding against the glass like tiny bullets. Gabriel's suit cuff still bore the wedding flowers, now trembling violently. "Delia, Gabriel, are you two all right?" The hospital room door was flung open. Gabriel didn't turn around, thus, he clearly saw Delia's expression stiffen momentarily at the sound of this voice. In that split second, he recalled all the previous inconsistencies. Gabriel had no prior dealings with Jerry, neither in business nor in private interactions. It was Delia who introduced him to her, and at every gathering, as long as Delia was present, Jerry would inevitably be there too. He finally released Delia's chin, where the pale mark faded, leaving behind a bright red fingerprint. "So, it's him." Jerry seemed oblivious to the atmosphere in the ward. He walked straight in, Instinctively wanting to check on Delia, his hand froze mid-reach, then as if suddenly realizing, it changed course and landed on Gabriel's shoulder instead. Look at you, wearing a corset while pregnant. See how worried you've got Gabriel here, huh? Can't sacrifice health for beauty like this. Grinning, he gave Gabriel a couple of pats on the arm, playing the perfect buddy. But after these words were spoken, no one in the ward responded. Delia had kept her head down ever since Jerry walked in. Her messy curls hung down, blocking any prying eyes. Jerry's fingers involuntarily curled a few times. Then he looked at Gabriel, meeting a pair of deep, unfathomable eyes. What's going on here? His head involuntarily tilted back slightly. Gabriel's gaze was so intense that Jerry actually broke out in a sweat on his back. So, the child is yours. In the blink of an eye, Jerry abruptly stepped back to dodge the incoming fist. He seemed genuinely clueless about what was happening, still persistently asking questions. Gabriel, have you lost your mind with work? What's this yours and mine nonsense? The hospital room was filled with the smell of disinfectant. Delia's fingernails dug into her palms, the pain keeping her alert. She looked at Gabriel's bloodshot eyes and suddenly burst into laughter, the sharp sound like shattering glass. Delia yanked out her foredrip, droplets of blood arcing through the air before landing on the sheets like crimson tear stains. Gabriel, stop acting crazy here. The two entangled figures froze, both turning to look at Delia on the hospital bed. She threw off the blanket, fully exposing her slightly swollen abdomen to the air. You guessed right, this child is Jerry's. He promised me that if I could trick you into marriage and successfully give birth to this child, he would marry me. Gabriel's fist finally connected with Jerry's face. He put all his strength into it, his knuckles immediately swelling red. So you've been using me all along. Those love letters, those photos, and you, I treated you like a brother, and this is how you repay me. His bloodshot eyes turned to Jerry, filled with disbelief. Jerry touched his bloodied lips, leaning against the doorframe. After a long silence, a smirk curled on his face as he watched Gabriel fume with rage, shrugging nonchalantly. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Gabriel, you've been stringing Clara along while still wanting to marry your sweetheart. Life doesn't work that way. I'll reluctantly help you share the burden then. As she spoke, Delia grabbed the water cup from the bedside and threw it at him. A fool like you actually got liked by Clara for 8 years. The cup grazed his forehead, blood mixing with water as it trickled down. Her words were laced with mockery. Oh right, you can go find her now. See if she'd even bother to glance back at you. The night was already deep. Michelle's family villa was still brightly lit. Gabriel kicked open Clara's door, the gust of wind lifting a flight itinerary on the desk. It was a flight itinerary from a city to New York. Gabriel, what kind of madness are you up to now? Hogan stepped forward, grabbing his arm with a face full of anger. He couldn't understand. His sister had already let go and left. Gabriel wasn't even staying at the hospital with Delia, and now he had to come to Michelle's house in the middle of the night to cause a scene. Gabriel wasn't listening to Hogan at all. Rainwater streaming down his face and pooling at his feet into a small puddle, he looked around, only to find the room covered with white cloth, clearly appearing uninhabited. He stared in disbelief at everything before him, though the layout remained the same. Everything had completely changed. The wardrobe was now mostly empty, and the dressing table held only a solitary metal box, its lid open and its contents gone. He turned away dejectedly, but at the doorway, he caught sight of the trash about to be taken away by the maid. A sudden intuition rang alarm bells in his mind. Gabriel suddenly stepped forward and tore open those trash bags, their contents scattering across the floor. A movie ticket stub, with a line written on the back, "First date with Gabriel brother." Then there was a torn half-page of a diary, the handwriting blurred by tears. Today he complimented the bento I made. At the very bottom was a neatly folded chocolate wrapper, the paper still stained with dried blood. It was the one he threw to her when he was 14. Outside the window, the heavy rain still hadn't stopped. Gabriel grabbed his phone and frantically dialed Clara's number. The mechanical tone finally changed. Sorry, the number you dialed is powered off. Hogan looked at Gabriel, who was kneeling on the ground, with an indifferent expression. Hogan, Clara, when did she leave? His voice was hoarse, so weak it seemed it might vanish into the air the next second. Now you're looking for her. Hogan stepped around a crumpled paper ball at his feet. When she stayed up all night bringing you hangover soup and scraped her knees, you were picking out a wedding dress for Delia. When she baked your birthday cake while running a high fever, you were out shopping with Delia. Every word was like a poisoned blade. Hogan closed his eyes briefly. This candy wrapper, she treasured it for 8 years. Do you even deserve to touch it now? He opened his mouth weakly, his Adam's apple bobbing with difficulty, but no complete sentence could escape. The candy wrapper in his palm suddenly turned scorching hot. The scene from the alley at 14 years old terrifyingly vivid. The girl clutched the chocolate he had thrown to her, the blood from her scraped knees staining her school uniform skirt. Now, the dark brown stains on the candy wrapper glaringly stung his eyes. Gabriel fell into silence, still clutching those things in his hand. I'm sorry. Hogan took a deep breath, desperately trying to suppress the fury within him. Gabriel, I don't know what's gotten into you today, but you should be at the hospital with your wife right now, not going crazy in my house. This apology shouldn't be directed at me, and it shouldn't be happening now. It's already too late. At least, Gabriel clung desperately to the closing door, rain and sweat dripping onto the ground. At least tell me the flight number, please. Hogan suddenly kicked out, watching the disheveled figure collapse into the muddy water with eyes as cold as ice. Stop dreaming. Clara has already left. You'll never see her again in this lifetime. The rain gradually subsided, and the horizon began to glow with the first light of dawn. Gabriel still clutched a forgotten sketch in his hand. In the drawing, he was wiping sweat by the basketball court, with a date marked in the bottom right corner. That was Clara's 22nd birthday a few days prior, and also the last day she smiled and called him Gabriel brother. In the hospital ward, Delia anxiously gnawed at her fingers, over and over. Her lips and teeth were already a bloody mess, yet she remained completely unaware. She walked barefoot to the door, staring at the bodyguard who stood watch without leaving for a moment, her pupils trembling incessantly. She returned to the hospital bed, her fingers tapping uncontrollably against the bed rail, producing a chaotic rhythm. Delia had been confined here for a week, with all windows and doors sealed shut, and someone guarding the entrance around the clock. Her phone had long been confiscated, and the TV in the room had no signal. It was utterly an isolated island. The rain outside the window had stopped, but her mood was gloomier than the weather. In a daze, Delia heard the nurse's voice. Gabriel feared she might do something drastic and die in the hospital, even arranging for nurses to check on her daily. But this couldn't go on. She couldn't stay locked up any longer. A knock sounded at the door. Miss Delia, I'm coming in. Delia suddenly wrapped herself tightly in the blanket, listening as the nurse's footsteps slowly approached. Miss Delia, it's time for your medicine. Click went the sound of the medicine bottle being placed on the nightstand. Delia lifted a corner of the blanket, revealing a weak smile. Could you get me a glass of water? The moment the nurse turned around, she swiftly took the phone from the nurse's pocket and hid it under her pillow. Her expression unchanged, she patiently waited for the nurse to finish the examination and leave. As the door closed, Delia ducked back under the covers and dialed a familiar number. Jerry, how much longer do you expect me to wait? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Gabriel has kept me locked up here for a week, and I haven't even caught a glimpse of him. A light chuckle came through the phone. Don't worry, I've already prepared the financial documents. Tomorrow, someone will expose Lester family's corporate accounting fraud. Rest assured, you'll be out soon. Delia's nails dug deep into her palms, her tone laced with terrifying hatred. You'd better keep your word. Not only that, after what he's done to me, I'll make sure he loses everything. Jerry's deep voice came through the receiver, mixed with a faint static noise. He chuckled softly, his tone brimming with confidence. With the documents you provided, isn't this as easy as turning over one's hand? After hanging up the phone, Delia deleted the call log, turned off her phone, and hid it in the narrow gap between the bedside table and the wall. Moonlight streamed through the gap in the curtains, illuminating her twisted smile. The next morning, the financial world was in an uproar. Lester Family Group accused of financial fraud. Stock price plummets 20% has become headline news across all major social media platforms. The top executives of Lester Family Group's board urgently convened a meeting, demanding Gabriel provide a reasonable explanation immediately. At this very moment, in Lester Family Group's conference room, shareholders' accusations are flying back and forth. A hot-tempered director was the first to speak, slamming the table. Mr. Gabriel, what on earth is going on here? The focus is no longer on what exactly caused the incident, director said with a composed expression. If the allegations are true, Mr. Gabriel, we demand the audit accounts be made public immediately. If the allegations are true, what's the point of auditing accounts? Gabriel must resign to take responsibility. Gabriel paled as he flipped through the leaked documents, his fingers constantly swiping across the screen. Every single page bore the official Lester family seal. With data so detailed it was terrifying. Only a very few people have access to these confidential documents. The arguments around him continued, but his gaze suddenly fixed on a particular page. Every page at the bottom of the document bore Gabriel's signature, except for this one, which was signed by Delia on his behalf. That upward hook in the final stroke looked all too familiar. Gabriel had once personally taught Delia how to sign his name in his office. Gabriel, look, did I learn it well? Yes, very much so. At that time, he held her in his arms, pointing at the curve, and Delia teased her playfully. Who would have thought that she had actually prepared a grand gift for herself all along? So that's how it is. Gabriel sneered and slammed the tablet on the table. Give me 3 days. Hey Gabriel, promise to give everyone a clear explanation. Meanwhile, in Hogan's office, he was watching the news about the Lester Families Corporation. Today, the Lester Family Group was investigated by the Securities Regulatory Commission for suspected financial fraud. As soon as the news broke, Lester Family Group's stock price plummeted, hitting the limit down at the opening, with a drop of 20%, drawing widespread market attention. He expressionlessly turned off the screen and picked up his phone to dial a number. Jerry stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the top floor of the Lester Family Group, overlooking a city's myriad lights. As the replay of the news report echoed in the office, Jerry adjusted his suit cuffs, thinking about Gabriel's impending troubles. A cold smirk involuntarily curled at the corner of his lips. At that moment, the door was knocked, and the assistant entered, handing over a document. Mr. Jerry, all procedures have been completed. The core assets of the Lester family have all been transferred under your name. Excellent. Jerry took the pen and signed his name with a flourish on the document. Notify the PR department. I want to hold a press conference that afternoon. A city's financial center conference hall was packed with reporters. Under the flashlights, Jerry stood impeccably dressed in a suit, wearing a perfectly practiced smile. Regarding the rumors circulating online recently, I will provide a detailed clarification, he said with a slight bow of his head, his tone utterly sincere. First, my relationship with Ms. Delia is purely platonic. Everything said online is baseless rumor. Second, the crisis at Lester Family Group was entirely due to the previous management's decision-making errors. Marlin family merely made the appropriate choice at the right time. Additionally, before he could finish, a recording suddenly played in the venue. As long as Gabriel loses everything, he'll realize who is truly the right person for him. Delia's voice was frenzied. I've prepared all the documents. You promised me that once it's done, I'll get everything I want. Meanwhile, Jerry's sneer was clearly audible. Of course, my dear partner. The venue erupted in an uproar. Jerry pressed the remote control without changing his expression. As you all heard, this was entirely Delia's personal doing. I have more evidence here. At the same time, Delia was hiding in her apartment, trembling as she watched the live broadcast on TV. Her phone kept vibrating with abusive text messages from unknown numbers. Her trembling fingers dialed Jerry's number, only to hear the cold automated voice. Sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service, bastard. She let out a scream and then hurled her phone against the wall with all her might, her carefully applied makeup smeared with tears, revealing the haggard face beneath. The doorbell suddenly rang at that moment. Delia rushed to open the door as if grasping at a lifeline, but the moment she opened it, she was blinded by a flash of light. At some point, her apartment door had already been crowded with reporters. Miss Delia, why did you frame Gabriel? Is there some hidden reason behind this? What is your relationship with Jerry? Did he really instruct you to do these things? It's said that you faked a pregnancy to deceive someone into marriage. How do you explain this? Delia staggered backward, tripped over her high heels, and fell onto the carpet. Staring at the flickering lights, she screamed hysterically. It was all Jerry's doing. He forced me. He promised he'd marry me once Gabriel lost everything. She grabbed anything within reach and hurled it at the reporters by the door. Get out, all of you, get out. The out-of-control video quickly went viral online. Meanwhile, Gabriel sat expressionless in the police station's monitoring room, watching it all unfold. Delia's address was the one he leaked to the reporters. Mr. Gabriel, the complete video evidence you provided is crucial. After verifying the footage, the officer stood up and handed him a document. Jerry is suspected of commercial fraud, and we've already applied for an arrest warrant from higher authorities. Gabriel nodded, his slender fingers tapping lightly on the table. Delia's act of leaking trade secrets is equally clear. Subsequently, the Lester family will also formally sue her. It was already late at night when he stepped out of the police station. The rain grew heavier. Just like that night when Clara left, Gabriel lifted his head, letting the cold raindrops hit his face. He knew some mistakes could never be undone. Some losses could never be recovered. But at the very least, he would make those who hurt her pay the price. Under the same sky, Delia finally waited for the reporters to leave, and she ran out of the apartment building. She stood Jerry's apartment building, raindrops dripping from her hair. The fruit knife in her hand gleaming coldly under the streetlight, her once meticulously manicured nails were now broken, and her expensive dress was soaked by the rain, clinging to her body like a layer of skin that couldn't be peeled off. The security at the entrance recognized her. After all, she used to be a frequent visitor here, Jerry's girlfriend. He hesitated for a moment but ultimately let her in. In the few seconds as the elevator ascended, Delia's breathing grew increasingly rapid. She recalled Jerry's cold gaze at the press conference, the way he casually distanced himself, and how she had been discarded like trash. Ding! The door opened. Jerry's apartment was brightly lit. He sat on the sofa, holding a glass of red wine. With the newly acquired Lester family equity documents spread out before him, a smile hung at the corner of his lips, as if he were leisurely admiring his spoils of war. Jerry, Delia's voice was hoarse, almost unrecognizable. He suddenly looked up. And upon seeing who it was, his pupils constricted sharply. How did you get in here? He stood up, knocking over the red wine, which spilled all over the floor. Delia laughed, laughing so hard that tears streamed down her face. You ruined me, she said softly. You ruined me, and now I'll ruin you. Come to hell with me. Jerry, his face instantly changed when he saw what she was holding in her hand. Are you insane? He took 2 steps back, reaching for his phone. Security, security. Delia didn't give him the chance. She lunged forward abruptly, the knife slicing through the air. Jerry barely dodged, but a bloody gash still appeared on his shoulder. He let out a painful cry, knocked over the coffee table, and sent documents scattering across the floor. You madman, he roared. Delia ignored him, bending down to grab the stock documents. She laughed like a lunatic. Didn't you want the Lester family? She trembled as she pulled out a lighter. I'll make sure you never get it. Flames leaped up with a whoosh, the papers instantly catching fire. The blaze licked at the expensive leather sofa as thick smoke billowed upward. Jerry's face completely changed. He rushed forward to snatch back the documents. But was Delia's knife blocking his path? Call the police, quick, call the police, he screamed hoarsely toward the door. Delia stood in the firelight, smiling like a victor. It's too late, she whispered. You're finished. The wail of sirens grew closer, followed by the roar of fire engines. Jerry stared at her intently, then suddenly let out a cold laugh. Lunatic, he spat through gritted teeth. You fool, you deserve to be Gabriel's plaything. Delia's smile froze on her face. The next second, the police burst through the door, pinning her to the ground as the firelight flickered across her face like an absurd curtain call. Meanwhile, Jerry stood to the side, his shoulder bleeding, his gaze dark and brooding, watching the fruits of his labor turn to pale ashes in the flames. Clara, did you see the news? Hogan's voice softened the moment the call connected. Gabriel and Delia, it's really over this time. From the other end of the line came Clara's calm voice. Brother, I don't care anymore. It's just that my coursework here is very intense, and I probably won't be able to return to see you anytime soon. Hogan sighed, stood up, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the skyscrapers in the distance. Well, being able to stay away from all this drama is a good thing, I suppose. By the way, how are you getting along with that guy Alex? The siblings tacitly skipped the serious topic as Hogan changed the subject. He's doing well, and last week he even took me to an art exhibition. Clara's voice couldn't help but relax, finally carrying a hint of a smile. That's good, that guy is pretty decent in every way. But you don't have to force yourself either. I know, big bro, don't worry. Clara was interrupted. Hogan heard an unfamiliar voice. Soon, Clara's voice rang out again. Gotta go, bro. I have class now. Talk later. After hanging up, Hogan stared at the sibling photo on his phone's lock screen for a long time. Clara's cheerful voice still seemed to linger in his ears. He lowered his eyes, fingers touching the glass before him. The icy sensation brought back memories of his sister's equally piercing teardrops on her face. He finally made up his mind and dialed another phone call. Hello, I am Hogan, regarding the financial issues of the Lester family group. I have some materials that might be of great interest to you. In the bar, Gabriel downed one strong drink after another, and the friends who once called each other brothers now avoided him one by one, not even answering his calls anymore. Brother. He thought of Jerry again and couldn't help but sneer. I'm just a fool, being played like a puppet in their hands. Mr. Gabriel, you can't drink anymore. the bartender cautiously advised. Gabriel turned a deaf ear to this. He opened another bottle of whiskey. The liquor slowly trickled down, the cold alcohol burning his throat, yet it couldn't extinguish the remorse in his heart. At this moment, Gabriel's phone suddenly vibrated. He looked at it with bleary eyes. It was a message from the company lawyer. According to feedback, Miss Delia has confessed to maliciously leaking company secrets. However, she claims she was instructed by Jerry and was merely carrying out tasks, not the mastermind. The police have already launched an investigation into this matter. Gabriel let out a cold laugh and tossed his phone aside. What he once believed to be true love, his white moonlight, turned out to be nothing but a complete deception from start to finish. Leaving behind a table full of empty liquor bottles, he staggered back to his apartment, standing dazedly in the empty living room. He suddenly seemed to remember something. By the moonlight, he rummaged through the storage room and pulled out a dusty metal box. That was Clara's legacy, filled entirely with memories related to him. Gabriel did not leave that night. He waited outside the villa until dawn and took all those things back when the servants were cleaning the living room. He collapsed beside the sofa, opening the box with hands trembling from excessive alcohol consumption. A yellowed photograph slipped out. 14-year-old Clara stood by the basketball court, holding a lunchbox in her hands, smiling shyly yet radiantly. Gabriel ran his fingers over the photo, suddenly recalling how she had blushed yet remained resolute when facing his teasing that day, saying "I'll grow up." The hazy moonlight streamed into the room as memories flooded in like tides. The scarf she had stayed up several nights to knit for him, the umbrella she deliberately brought whenever it rained, and the figure that would always stay by his bedside whenever he fell ill, Clara. Choking back sobs, he curled his body and clutched the small metal box tightly to his chest. The tears he had held back for so long finally overflowed. Gabriel was choked with tears. Suddenly, urgent knocking at the door broke through the grief-stricken silence, startling the lost-in-sorrow figure back to reality. Gabriel wiped his face and staggered to his feet. He opened the door to find his old brothers standing there. Several men crowded at the doorway, all wearing the same gloomy expressions. "Gabriel, we all know now," the leader said gravely. "Delia and Jerry conspired against you. They've been deceiving you all these years." Another man stepped forward, handing over his phone. "And, you should see this first." On the screen was a surveillance video that clearly captured Delia and Jerry secretly meeting at a hotel. The timestamp in the top left corner showed that the meeting occurred just before Delia agreed to pretend to be a couple with him. This video further confirmed Delia and Jerry's scheming, making Gabriel realize his own foolishness even more. "We wronged Clara," someone murmured. "She was the one who truly cared for you. How ridiculous it is that they only came to understand this truth now." Gabriel felt as if his chest had been struck by a heavy hammer, leaving him breathless with pain. He turned around, grabbed the car keys, and rushed out the door despite everyone's attempts to stop him. "I have to find her. I must apologize to her in person." An overwhelming sense of guilt nearly drowned him, yet he still remembered Clara had already gone abroad. For a moment, Gabriel gripped the steering wheel but had no idea where to go. When he finally arrived at Michelle's villa, only a locked gate and empty rooms greeted him. Hogan stood coldly at the door. "What are you even doing here?" Gabriel knelt at the door, rain mixing with tears as they streamed down. "Hogan, tell me where she is, I beg you." Hogan shook his head, his eyes filled with disappointment. "Too late, Gabriel. For a liar, you've lost the one who loved you most." Winter in New York arrived swiftly and fiercely. Clara gently exhaled a breath, creating a small patch of hazy mist on the glass window. She absently traced her finger across it, drawing unconscious lines. The nearby desk was piled with various drafts. As the mist gradually dissipated, she turned her gaze to the incomplete butterfly on the design sketch. The charcoal pencil twirled in her fingers before she finally drew a long, slender crack across it with deliberate force. "Clara, your Broken Wings collection has been fully pre-ordered by Chanel." Clara's mentor burst into the studio, hair tousled by the cold wind and champagne in hand, only to freeze at the sight of crumpled sketches scattered across the floor. "Sweetheart, this is something worth celebrating. You should be standing in the spotlight or at a lively party, not locking yourself indoors like a snail." Sophia set down the champagne and carefully stepped over the crumpled paper balls on the floor. Clara seemed not to hear. She bent down to pick up a coffee-stained sketch, the golden powder on the butterfly wings fluttering down like dust. "It's still not painful enough," she murmured softly, her nails unconsciously digging into her palms, where faint traces of brown lingered, old scars from the past. A butterfly that truly breaks free from its cocoon should bear traces of blood. Clara wore long sleeves and pants, even in the warm indoors, with only her neck exposed. The glass wall reflected the newly inked butterfly tattoo behind her ear, its broken wings perfectly concealing the scar left by the falling chandelier years ago. "Oh, Alex, you're here, great. I just can't seem to get Clara's attention to stay on me. Other than during class, she simply doesn't listen to me at all." "I understand, Miss Sophia." This flamboyant woman clutched her chest, and after a dramatic incantation, confidently handed over her student. "Have a bite to eat. It'd be better if we avoid incidents like designers fainting at their drafting tables from hunger." Clara finally tore her gaze away from the sketches in front of her. Alex leaned against the doorframe, one hand holding 2 paper cups and the other carrying an insulated bag. His sleeves still bore traces of glue from working on architectural models. Clara caught the aroma of the food. He pulled out one insulated container after another from the bag, shrimp with scrambled eggs, cola chicken wings, all her favorite dishes. Watching the person meticulously arranging the dishes, Clara recalled the first time she met Alex, when she first arrived in London. When Alex appeared at her apartment door for the first time, Clara instinctively tensed up. "Miss Clara, I'm Alex. Your brother asked me to look after you. For our first meeting, I brought you some things." The man stood in the snowstorm, his tall figure accentuated by the black overcoat, holding a brown paper bag that faintly revealed the edges of a few books. She didn't take it, merely replying coldly, "Thank you, but I don't need it." Neither the books nor the care. Clara could understand her brother's concern, but she simply didn't have the energy for new social interactions. "I can take care of myself. You don't need to worry about me, and I won't tell my brother either." Alex wasn't annoyed by Clara's attitude of shutting him out. Instead, he smiled. "Your brother said you like Eileen Cheng. This is the Hong Kong edition of Half a Lifelong Romance. You can't buy it in mainland China." Clara's fingers curled slightly. Of course she remembered how much she had loved this book, even copying sentences from it into her diary, back then. She naively believed that her story with Gabriel would naturally be different. But where in the world are there so many things that go without saying? "No, I don't read it anymore," she heard herself say, her voice so low it was nearly drowned out by the wind and snow. "The current me doesn't deserve something this good." Alex didn't move, just quietly watched her. His eyes were very dark, but unlike Gabriel's condescending scrutiny, they were more like a tranquil deep sea, capable of embracing all surging tides. "Books aren't about deserving or not deserving, only about wanting to read or not," he said softly, then leaned slightly forward to place the paper bag on the shoe cabinet by the door before stepping back. "If you change your mind, I live in the next building." His figure disappeared into the hallway. After a while, Clara closed the door, leaning weakly against it as she took deep breaths. She thought she would cry, but when she touched her cheeks, they were dry. She wanted to shed tears, yet her eyes only ached with dryness. Later, Alex no longer deliberately approached her. Clara had thought that this matter had already come to an end here. However, she began to occasionally bump into him at the library or casually receive a cup of black coffee she often drank. Then one late night, Clara was working in the studio until dawn when a wave of dizziness from low blood sugar hit her. A cup of steaming hot milk with a sweet aroma was then pushed in front of her. "Have a little something." Alex's voice came from above. Clara looked astonished. "How could you? I heard someone needed a free laborer, so here I am." He handed her a glass of milk. "Don't worry, my hands are steady when dismantling models." She sipped the milk and couldn't help but look up at the rustling sound, only to see him holding her design sketch with a gaze as focused as if admiring a grand architectural masterpiece. "Here," he pointed at the pleated lines of the skirt. "If we change it to an asymmetrical curved cut, wouldn't it better capture the moment of a butterfly's wings fluttering?" Clara froze. For the first time, someone had seen through the metaphors she concealed within broken butterfly wings, those fragmented lines, those deliberately crafted imperfections. All were her inexpressible pain. "Do you know why I chose the butterfly?" Clara suddenly asked. Alex set down the blueprint in his hand, his gaze resting on the tattoo behind her ear. "Because only by enduring the pain of breaking free from the cocoon can a butterfly spread its wings and fly." "Right." Clara's fingers trembled slightly as they gripped the pen. 8 years of love had only resulted in becoming a laughingstock. She had once thought she would forever be trapped in that pitch-black rainy night, trapped in Gabriel's choice to save Delia and abandon her in that moment. "If you need me," Alex suddenly spoke up, "for next week's Fashion Week, if your collection requires structural support with architectural elements, I can offer advice." He didn't expect Clara's response, nor did he even glance in her direction. He simply sat there quietly, leaving the choice entirely to her. Clara, her eyes flickered. Alex asked softly, yet his voice was like a key, unlocking the door to her tightly closed heart. But he just stood at the door, patiently waiting for her invitation. The cold wind outside the window still showed no sign of stopping, and the once chilly studio was now filled with the sweet aroma of milk. For the next week, Clara was busy preparing for the fashion week. The daylight outside the window rose and fell. She yawned again. This was already her third all-nighter in a row. The closer it got to the start of fashion week, Clara grew increasingly dissatisfied with her runway designs. The crumpled paper balls at her feet were nearly covering them, and her body was screaming under the strain. But this part still isn't right. In a daze, Clara heard a faint knock-knock. Turning her head, she saw Alex standing by the door, who gave her a gentle wave when their eyes met. She stepped into the room and glanced around. Alex's studio always carried the scent of pine wood and pencil shavings. Blueprints sprawled across the long table in a chaotic yet orderly fashion, boldly dominating the central area of the workspace. Clara unconsciously softened her footsteps. Surrounded by countless intricate miniature models, she felt as if she had accidentally wandered into a Lilliputian world. Suddenly, her gaze was drawn to a miniature glass greenhouse by the window. The curvature of the dome strikingly resembled the wing arcs in her design sketches. Sunlight streamed through the glass, casting fragmented light and shadow on the floor, as if wings were about to flutter. Clara gazed at the scene, her mind dazed, and unconsciously softened her voice. Alex's footsteps halted behind her, carrying a faint scent of pine wood. This is a project from Switzerland. In Clara's blind spot, Alex subconsciously reached up to touch his earlobe. But if you like it, you can use it for your fashion show. Suddenly, a draft paper appeared before her eyes. Clara stared blankly at it, then reached out to take it. Dust particles floating in the air danced lightly across the paper, where lines seemed to grow freely, the dome gradually transforming into outstretched butterfly wings, and vines entwining along the glass seams. She saw the soul of her design reinterpreted in another artistic language. Isn't this too wasteful? Clara shook her head, about to place the draft paper back on the table. This should be a very important bidding project, right? Alex simply smiled, folded the draft neatly, and tucked it back into Clara's hand. The next day, the door was knocked upon once again. Clara jerked her head up with an unconscious sense of anticipation. Alex walked in, his hair still dusted with unmelted snowflakes, cradling a model in his arms. The greenhouse dome had transformed into an asymmetrical butterfly wing structure, each pane of glass etched with unique butterfly patterns that refracted rainbow hues under the light. The most striking feature was the crooked ribbon bow on the base, resembling a clumsily perched butterfly. Clara noticed his fingertips were still covered with band-aids. My first time tying a bow, he murmured, the tips of his ears turning faintly red as his voice nearly dissolved into the night. Sorry, it's not very good. Warm light filled the room, and gazing at his earlobe, Clara found herself speaking almost involuntarily. Why are you so good to me? Is it because of my brother's request? Alex remained silent for a long time before finally speaking softly. Your brother did ask me to look after you. In the quiet room, the sound of heartbeats was deafening, rising and falling. His fingers brushed over the model as he spoke in a clear voice. But I won't deny that I have my own selfish motives. Gabriel stood on the street of Fifth Avenue in New York, tiny snowflakes landing on his shoulders only to melt away quickly. He looked up at the giant Fashion Week poster not far away, where Clara's name was prominently listed. The domestic matters were still unresolved, interrogations from parents, pressure from the board, betrayal by a lover, mockery from rivals. Gabriel experienced levels of disdain and indifference he had never known before in his life. He sold off some of his private assets, handed the company over to professional managers, left everything behind, and flew alone to New York. But, sir, the show requires an invitation. The security personnel blocked his path. Gabriel's fingers trembled slightly. He didn't have an invitation. He wanted to say he knew Clara and was here to see her. But as he opened his mouth, the words caught in his throat. Who was he, and what was he to Clara? Gabriel pondered his own identity, realizing the only role he could truthfully claim was that of the bastard who'd hurt her most deeply. His shoulders slumped as he peered through the glass. Seeing the brightly lit interior of the show, Clara was wearing a long black dress, engaged in conversation with a tall Asian man. Gabriel saw the smile on her face, bright and genuine, one Gabriel hadn't seen in 8 years. He watched as the man leaned in to whisper something in her ear, his fingers lightly brushing the butterfly tattoo behind it. Clara didn't dodge but instead tilted her head slightly. making his touch feel more natural. Gabriel's heart felt as if it were being crushed by an invisible hand. He had once possessed all of this girl's love, only to shatter it with his own actions. Now, he could only stand in the snowstorm, watching through the glass as she smiled at someone else. "Gabriel," a familiar voice came from behind. Gabriel turned around and saw Hogan standing not far away, his brows tightly furrowed. "What are you doing here?" Hogan's voice was icy. "Clara has finally started a new life. And you're here to disturb her again." Gabriel's Adam's apple bobbed. "I just wanted to see her." "Go see her." Hogan let out a cold laugh, his fists clenching involuntarily. "Why didn't you say go see her when she was lying in the hospital? Why didn't you save her when the chandelier fell on her?" Every accusatory question stabbed at Gabriel's heart like a knife. He wanted to defend himself, but found all words utterly inadequate. Yes, he had chosen Delia, time and again, even later. When he knew it was all a deception, when he knew Clara was the one who truly cared for him. But it was already too late. "I was wrong." Gabriel's voice was hoarse. "Hogan, I truly know I was wrong now. Could you give me a chance to apologize to her in person?" Hogan shook his head. "Too late, Gabriel. Your remorse has come too late." He turned to look at the smiling Clara, his eyes filled with heartache and pride. "Do you know how the tattoo behind her ear came to be? It was to cover the scar left by a chandelier. Do you know why she designed the Broken Wings series? Because she said, only butterflies that have been broken truly understand the weight of flight." Gabriel lowered his head, Hogan's words piercing his heart. His mind involuntarily conjured up an image of Clara at 14. Back then, she stood by the basketball court holding a lunchbox, her cheeks flushed with shyness. Back then, her eyes were filled with nothing but admiration and affection for him. "I'll wait," Gabriel said in a hoarse voice, "until she's willing to see me." Hogan looked at the stubborn man before him and sighed. "Suit yourself, but just one thing, don't show up in front of her. He is good, he can give Clara what you can never offer, respect and equality." With that said, Hogan no longer looked at his former friend and turned to walk into the show, through the glass. Gabriel saw him approach Clara and affectionately ruffle her hair. Meanwhile, Alex stood nearby as well, the three chatting happily like a family. Snowflakes landed on Gabriel's eyelashes, melting into water like tears. At last, he understood that some people, once lost, can never be found again. On the final day of Fashion Week, Clara's Broken Butterfly Wings collection took the stage as the grand finale. On the runway, models walked to the beat of the music in gowns she had designed. The black tulle resembled the shattered wings of butterflies, adorned with crystals and pearls that shimmered faintly under the lights. Those deliberately asymmetrical cuts, those fragmented and reassembled lines, tell a story of pain and rebirth. Backstage, Clara nervously bit her lower lip, her eyes fixed on the audience's reaction below. Alex stood beside her, his fingers lightly tapping before gently taking her hand. "Look," he pointed to the end of the runway, "that's your work, your story." The final gown made its entrance in complete silence. It was a pure white wedding dress, embroidered with countless butterflies. Starting from the hem, the butterflies gradually became more complete, until at the chest, there was a golden swallowtail butterfly poised to take flight. "This is..." Alex's finger paused. "Breaking the cocoon," Clara said softly. "Sophia found me and told me about the idea you mentioned before. I incorporated it into my collection. I think it's the perfect finishing touch." A soft chuckle sounded by the ear. "I must say, it's my pleasure." Clara turned to look at him and noticed Alex's unusually gentle gaze. "You deserve a fresh start, Clara." Alex exerted a slight pressure with his hand, his tone even more solemn. "Not as someone's shadow, not as the one who was abandoned, just as yourself. As a brilliant designer, you must believe in yourself. You are someone worthy of being loved wholeheartedly." As the words fell, the fashion show concluded, and thunderous applause erupted from the audience. During the curtain call, Clara slowly walked onto the runway. The lights were dazzling. Squinting, she saw her brother and Alex sitting in the front row, clapping vigorously with proud smiles on their faces. At this moment, all the applause and praise in the room were for her alone. In a daze, she seemed to see a familiar figure standing in the shadows at the very back row. It was Gabriel. He stood there quietly, motionless, just watching her with a complex gaze. Clara averted her eyes, then bent down to bow deeply to the audience. At that moment, she felt the butterfly tattoo behind her ear grow slightly warm, as if it had truly been given new life. At the post-show celebration, Alex found Clara standing alone on the terrace. The night sky over New York was unusually clear, dotted with stars. "What are you thinking about?" He approached, handing her a glass of champagne. Clara shook her head. "It's just incredible. A year ago, I was still trapped in that rainy night, stuck in a love that would never be returned. Now, my work is on the international stage, that's just how life is. Alex leaned back against the railing. Some wounds seem impossible to heal, but it's those very cracks that let the light in. He paused. Then took out a small velvet box from his pocket. Clara, please don't misunderstand, he said with a smile. This is just an invitation. Next month, I have a project in Switzerland and would like you to come along. There's a valley with the most beautiful butterflies in the world. I think you'd love it. Clara looked at the butterfly-shaped brooch in the box, its silver wings adorned with tiny sapphires that shimmered under the starlight. All right, she heard her own voice say. Receiving an affirmative answer, Alex let out a barely audible sigh of relief. He then pinned the brooch to her collar and gave her a gentle hug. Clara closed her eyes, breathing in the faint scent of pine wood on him, soothing and grounding. Meanwhile, back in their homeland, a storm of blood and violence was raging. Delia stood disheveled beneath the Lester family's corporate tower, rain streaming down her cheeks, mingling with tears of frustration. She had just been thrown out by security. Losing even her last job, her phone buzzed incessantly with abusive messages from unknown numbers. Bitch, you seduced Jerry to frame the Lester family. Now you're getting what you deserve. How dare she show her face after those bedroom photos went viral all over the internet. Her hands trembled as she clicked on the trending topic, the overwhelming headlines stinging her eyes. Shocking. Delia and Jerry's secret hotel rendezvous video leaked. Lester family's former CEO cuckolded for years. Delia faked pregnancy to trap into marriage, conspired with Jerry to steal Lester family's trade secrets. In the video, the clear image of her and Jerry kissing in the hotel corridor is visible, and even her coquettish laughter can be heard. Once Gabriel marries me, the entire Lester family will be ours. Delia abruptly turned off her phone, her nails digging deeply into her palms. Gabriel, you're ruthless. She should have known, with Gabriel's methods, he would never let her off easily. But she never expected that he would use the most humiliating method to ruin her reputation. She dialed Jerry's number, only to hear the cold automated voice. Sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service. Jerry was also unreachable. She was completely abandoned. Meanwhile, at the Lester family's ancestral home, Gabriel stood outside his father's study, listening to the sound of shattering porcelain and Gabriel's dad screaming hysterically, "You unfilial son, for the sake of a woman. You'd destroy the entire Lester family." He pushed open the door expressionlessly, seeing his father clutching his chest, pale-faced as he collapsed into a chair. "Dad, how dare you call me Dad?" Gabriel's dad suddenly grabbed the newspaper from the table and threw it at him. "Look at this, open your eyes wide and take a good look. Now the whole of a city is laughing at our Lester family. That bitch Delia caused our stock prices to plummet. And you still think it's not humiliating enough? You actually sold those bedroom photos to the media yourself." Gabriel responded with nothing but a cold laugh. "Because she deserved it, deserved it." Gabriel's dad stood up abruptly, pointing a trembling finger at him. "And what about you? Don't you deserve it too? Clara gave you her heart and soul for 8 years. What did you treat her as?" Gabriel's pupils constricted sharply. "You even went all the way to New York to find her, and now you regret it. Too late." Gabriel's dad laughed in extreme anger. "Do you think the Michelle family would give you another chance? Hogan has already made it clear, if you dare show your face in front of Clara, he'll make sure you can't survive in a city." Before the words had fully left his mouth, Gabriel's dad suddenly paled, clutched his chest in agony, and before Gabriel could react, he collapsed heavily to the ground. "Dad, Dad," the siren of the ambulance pierced through the night sky. But everything happened too quickly. Gabriel's dad was diagnosed with a sudden myocardial infarction on the way to the hospital and was confirmed to have died despite resuscitation efforts. The pillar of the Lester family had fallen. 1 month later, in the slums of a city, Gabriel huddled in a shabby rented room, staring at the constant stream of news popping up on his phone. The Lester family conglomerate officially changes hands, acquired by Marlin Family Capital. Former heir now destitute on the streets, Lester family assets completely divided. He expressionlessly turned off the screen and reached for his swollen left leg. There was a gruesome wound there, left from being surrounded and beaten by a group of thugs last night. "Well, if it isn't Gabriel, back then, for the sake of Delia, you even dared to bully the young lady of the Michelle family. How come you're lying here like a dog now?" Gabriel recognized those people. They were the same thugs he had personally taught a lesson to when Clara was cornered in the alley back then. "Karma comes quickly," he cursed under his breath, struggled to his feet, and limped out the door with his broken leg. He was going to New York. He had to see her one last time, Clara outside the studio, snow was falling heavily. Gabriel stood across the street, gazing at the familiar figure through the glass window. She was thinner than before, her long hair casually tied up. The butterfly tattoo behind her ear faintly visible under the light. She was bent over her design sketches, occasionally looking up to laugh with the man beside her. That was Alex, the buddy Hogan kept raving about. Gabriel's heart felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand. He once had all her love, only to shatter it with his own hands. The snow fell heavily in New York. Clara tightened her coat and hurried across the street with her head down. Her breath forming white puffs that condensed and dissipated in the air. She had just left the studio, clutching a few design drafts in her arms, her fingertips red from the cold. Suddenly, a familiar figure blocked her path. She came to an abrupt halt and looked up. It was Gabriel. He looked even more haggard than the last time we met, his jawline sharp as if carved by a knife, bloodshot eyes beneath, his black coat soaked with snow, like a ghost that had crawled out of hell. Clara. His voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken in a long time. Clara's fingers tightened unconsciously, crumpling the paper into a ball in her palm. Move aside. Her voice was colder than the swirling snow around them. Gabriel didn't move, just stared at her intently, his gaze filled with longing as if trying to etch her into his very bones. I was wrong, he said these words. Clara remained silent for a long moment before suddenly laughing, her eyes turning red with emotion. Gabriel, do you think that just because you say I was wrong, I should forgive you? Her voice was so soft it was nearly drowned out by the snowstorm. Do you think I'd still stand there foolishly like before, waiting for you to turn back? Gabriel swallowed hard, reaching out to touch her, but his hand froze mid-air upon hearing those words. I just wanted to see you, seen enough now. Clara took a step back, putting distance between them. Then you can leave. She walked past him, striding forward, but Gabriel suddenly grabbed her wrist as they brushed past each other. Let go. Clara frowned, using all her strength to break free. Clara, Gabriel's voice trembled. I have nothing left now. Clara stopped struggling and turned to look at him, her gaze as distant as if she were looking at a stranger. So what? She asked softly. Now that you have nothing left, you finally remember me and come looking for me. Gabriel's pupils suddenly contracted. No, Gabriel, she interrupted him, enunciating each word clearly. The fate you're facing now is what you deserve. You brought this upon yourself. She shook off his hand and walked into the snowstorm without looking back. Gabriel stood still, snow piling on his shoulders. Suddenly, he remembered the little girl from many years ago, standing at the alley entrance with reddened eyes, waiting for him to turn back. The snow fell even heavier. Clara walked briskly through the snow, her eyelashes dusted with tiny ice crystals. She heard footsteps behind her. Gabriel was still following her. Just as she was about to turn and scold him, a tall figure emerged from the street corner, the sharp angles of his black coat flaring in the wind. It was Alex. He held a black umbrella in his hand, his gaze softening at the sight of Clara's reddened nose, only to freeze abruptly upon noticing the figure closely following behind. Clara, he quickly stepped forward, tilting the umbrella to shield her from the wind and snow. His gaze swept over her fingers, already pale from the cold, and without a word he took the design drafts from her arms. Why didn't you wear gloves when you came out? Clara couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Her tense body relaxed as she took a few steps closer to him. I forgot. Gabriel stopped a few meters away. The gazes of the two men collided in the air, like two drawn swords. And this is, Alex spoke calmly, yet subtly moved Clara half a step behind him. Someone insignificant, Clara murmured into her cashmere scarf as she adjusted it, yet her words rang clear enough for everyone present to hear. Gabriel's jaw tightened. He recognized that look, the warning glare that only appeared when his territory was being encroached upon. Gabriel had used that very look to intimidate away every would-be suitor who dared approach Clara. Now that the roles have reversed, he finally tasted the bitterness and resentment in it. Mr. Gabriel, Alex suddenly spoke, his voice icy. New York isn't safe. I suggest you don't follow women late at night to avoid misunderstandings. Snowflakes lightly landed on Gabriel's shoulders, yet they felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds, pressing him down until he couldn't lift his head. He stared at Alex's hand resting on Clara's back. We've known each other for 8 years, so what? Alex chuckled lightly, his fingertips brushing the edges of the design draft he had just taken from Clara, his tone laced with a hint of mockery. So knowing each other for 8 years gives you the right to harass her on the street? Clara suddenly looked up, under the streetlight. Alex's profile was as sharp and perfect as his architectural models. She had never seen him like this before. his usually smiling peach blossom eyes now cold as polar glaciers, even his voice turning icy and hard. Gabriel took a step forward. The snow crunching underfoot. This is between her and me, but not anymore. Alex and the person opposite simultaneously shifted their steps, completely blocking Clara as the black umbrella drew a clear line in the snow. If you take one more step closer, I'll have the police invite you to the station for a cup of coffee. He paused. I heard you've just lost the Lester family. Then I suppose you wouldn't want to get involved in another lawsuit. These words pierced Gabriel's heart like a knife. He looked at Clara, only to see her gently tugging at Alex's sleeve. Let's go, it's so cold. Alex turned immediately, the wind and snow carrying his final warning into Gabriel's ears. Don't let me see you near her again. Their figures gradually disappeared into the curtain of snow. Gabriel stood still, watching as Clara's hair brushed past Alex's shoulder, watching the little girl who once smiled only for him now tilting her head up to say to someone else, "Tilt the umbrella a bit more your way." Snow fell into his collar, taking away the last trace of warmth from his heart. Later, a city never saw Gabriel again. Some said he went to South America, while others claimed he died on a snowy night. Meanwhile, Clara's Broken Butterfly Wings collection debuted at Paris Fashion Week at the end of the year, making her the most talked about designer of the year. During the curtain call, Alex knelt on one knee backstage and slipped a butterfly diamond ring onto her finger. She finally broke free from her cocoon and transformed into a butterfly, soaring toward the sky that belonged to her. While some people were destined to be nothing more than a snowstorm in her life, Paris. A private art exhibition dinner party. Clara stood on the balcony, the starry sky unfolding above her, the butterfly tattoo on her collarbone shimmering with delicate light under the glow. 5 years have passed. Her personal brand has gone from New York to the world, with each season's runway show resembling a grand farewell ceremony. A farewell to the self that once humbled for love, a farewell to those years of being let down. Footsteps sound behind her. Alex walks over and drapes a coat over her shoulders. What are you thinking about? He asked, his fingers lightly brushing over the butterfly on her collarbone. Clara shook her head, a faint smile playing at the corners of her lips. Just thinking. How strange fate can be. If she hadn't chosen to go to New York back then, but had gone to another country, another city instead, if she hadn't met Alex, she might have remained forever trapped in the memory of that rainy night. Trapped in the sight of Gabriel choosing Delia and walking away, Alex didn't press further about her musings, simply taking her hand gently. It's time for the curtain call. At the end of the runway, Clara stood alone, her white dress as light as butterfly wings. The entire venue erupted in thunderous applause. With camera flashes twinkling like stars, she looked up at the night sky, and the camera zoomed in on the butterfly tattoo on her collarbone. A design covering her scar, and also the mark of her rebirth. She had finally flown through that storm, the late autumn in Paris. Fallen leaves carpet the paths of Montmartre. Clara stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of her studio, fingertips lightly tracing the butterfly tattoo on her collarbone. Sunlight filtered through the glass, refracting diamond glints from her wedding ring that danced across her manuscript like stardust. No one had mentioned that name in front of her for a long time. She silently took the envelope, walked past it alone, and stepped onto the balcony alone. Miss Clara, this is Mr. Gabriel's delayed letter sent before his passing. It just arrived today. No one had mentioned that name in front of her for a long time. She silently took the envelope, walked past it alone, and stepped onto the balcony alone. Inside was a stack of photos. At 18, she secretly watched him by the basketball court, on her 22nd birthday. She stood at the club entrance in a white dress, her eyes brimming with anticipation. The last one was a photo of her back as she took her final bow at New York Fashion Week. On the back of the photo was written a line of text, "If given another chance, I would fall in love with you first." Clara gazed quietly at those photos and suddenly smiled. Too late. She folded the letter into a paper airplane and tossed it out the window. What are you looking at? Warmth enveloped her from behind. Alex rested his chin atop her head. In his hands were the blueprints just arrived from Switzerland, the model of the butterfly observatory glistening transparently in the sunlight. Thinking about going to London tomorrow to receive the award. She turned around, the tattoo behind her ear brushing past the corner of his lips. Should I mention the inspiration from Broken Butterfly Wings in my acceptance speech? Alex smiled and kissed the diamond ring on her finger. Of course. Talk about how you turned scars into wings. Cheers suddenly erupted from the square downstairs. They gazed out the window as children ran into the newly built Butterfly Museum. The glass dome refracting sunlight into a cascading rainbow that spilled over everyone's shoulders. amidst the fluttering shadows of countless wings, she clearly saw her 14-year-old self, that girl standing at the alley's entrance clutching chocolate, her knees scabbed over. Was smiling at her present self across the vast expanse of time.